flavors like celery and mixed vegetable. Even some cookbooks of the time period had entire...
Alright guys, welcome back to my channel, to fellow Gen Z Brit, back again with another reaction. Today we're going to be checking out crazy 60s things that were once normal. Already, if you can see by the thumbnail, this is already looking mad. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. Of course, guys, as you can see in the top here, I got my live subscribe account. Subscribe channel if you haven't already. Join me on this journey of curiosity, especially when I go back into the past. And don't forget to smash that like button, so I know you guys want to see more. But look, guys, with that being said, let's get straight into the video. Let's go.
If you were around in the 1960s, then it's probably a miracle that you're still around today. Smoke was everywhere. Car seats for kids were a joke, and there were all sorts of health hazards that were around everyone.
I would not survive.
Not everything was dangerous, but that does not mean that it wasn't a little strange. Kids today would not understand how normal it was, but for those in the 60s, it certainly was.
Wait a minute.
It was probably Darwin's game of survival at its finest. In this video, we will examine some of the crazy 1960s things that were once normal. Hair care in the 1960s was pretty intense and time-consuming.
Oh, this hairstyle.
Women of the decade used a considerable amount of hairspray in order to get some of the popular hairstyles. The beehive and bouffant required a lot of teasing and setting with hairspray in order to maintain their shape.
Oh my, we got guys, like I've came across this in this hairstyle before, especially in The Simpsons. I feel like Marge Simpson's trim is literally reminds me of this. And the fact that people actually wore their hair like that is insane to me. Out of all the hairstyles I've seen, and I've seen the 80s hairstyles, I feel like 80s with all that iconic hairspray, this one takes the cake with the maddest type of hairstyle. Like this hairstyle definitely seems the most taxing. Like, just look at it, guys. Look at that. How I don't even want to imagine how long that took her to do. If you guys ever experienced this type of hairstyle, let me know, because it looks wild.
That was one of the defining features of 1960s hairstyling.
Jeez.
Today, women who have straight hair want curly hair, and women who have curly hair want straight hair. In the 1960s, it was still very much the same. But what was not available was all the straightening irons like you see today. Many women would throw their hair on an ironing board and then have a friend, sister, or mom straighten it out with an actual clothes iron.
You're joking.
I wonder how many burns happened or how much hair was completely fried.
What? Right. Oh, Lord have mercy. You know, it's things like the things that I have today that I don't even realize just what it was like before and just how much better things are now in the time period that I grew up on. But to put your head on an iron board and have someone iron out your hair to straighten it is creative, but the fact that that's how it was done back then is wild to me. That, yeah.
Burns happened or how much hair was completely fried.
Are you serious?
In the 1960s, people were not satisfied with just having plain oatmeal or cream of wheat. It just wasn't good enough. This was especially true with children. But one way to eat a little healthier was to add a scoop of your favorite ice cream on top of your hot cream of wheat. Because why not?
I do that with syrup.
Ice cream fixes everything.
So that was popular back in the day. Okay.
The disposable razor.
That's so interesting. Now I just have syrup, you know, on this. Like, I wouldn't have ice cream, but like now that I'm seeing it, I might actually try that. That looks interesting.
Fixes everything.
I'd probably like it as well.
The disposable razor did not come out until 1974. Prior to that time, people were using what is now called old-fashioned razors or safety razors. They had a protective guard on them in order to minimize the risk of cuts and nicks while shaving. They look a little like a paint scraper, but they were actually quite effective.
That looks like a death
trap.
Bic
and Gillette changed everyone's thinking on how they should buy razors in the 1970s.
What is that? It looks like a rake.
Jello was a popular snack or dessert in the 1960s.
I've seen this.
That may not sound weird, but it wasn't just plain flavored jello like cherry, orange, lime, or strawberry. The Jello brand introduced some savory flavors like celery and mixed vegetable. Even some cookbooks of the time period had entire sections that were dedicated to this trend.
I don't like looking at that.
There was absolutely no telling what you could see in a Jello back then, and thankfully no one is doing this anymore. At least I hope not.
I just like can't believe that people actually ate those, and so I think some of you guys are telling me that you enjoyed it. Like, I don't understand. Oh, to be fair, I also saw people saying they didn't like it. How do you put anything you put into salad tastes better in new Jello salad gelatin? Why is there a drumstick next to a cucumber, next to what looks like to be like, I'm even gonna guess that, don't know what that is, nuts, tomato? Who in their right mind would put all of that in this? I'm speechless. If I ever, and I'm saying ever, find out that one of you guys watching this put a drumstick in this, unsubscribe to the channel. Unsubscribe. Because I can't be having a fellow flexer putting drumsticks in. Sorry. This is the one thing that I see from the 60s that kills me. Oh,
was absolutely no telling what you could see in a Jello back then, and
I don't want to imagine.
No one is doing this anymore.
I don't want to imagine.
At least I hope not.
Me and you both.
One of the most popular toys of the time was the Thing Maker or creepy crawlers. If a kid did not have one, then they definitely wanted one. Basically, a kid was given a hot plate that he or she plugged in, and then once it was hot, they squirted plastic goop into a mold.
Yeah, toys back in the day.
What could go wrong, right?
Crazy.
Hot metal and hot molten plastic. However, kids learned quickly how not to burn the crap out of themselves, but one thing you could not avoid were the fumes. If you have ever smelled this, then you know it's a smell that you'll never forget. At the time, no one even gave it a second thought. At one time or another, everyone in the 1960s came in contact with some sort of house paint. You may have painted with it or rubbed up against it, but it really didn't matter. All of the paint that was used inside and outside of the homes had lead in it.
Oh, yeah.
Lead was something that they used in
I heard
paint
about
to make
this.
it more durable, dry faster, and resist moisture. However, repeated exposure to lead could be hazardous to your health. In 1978, the federal government banned lead in residential paint products.
Thank God for that.
But for anyone in the 1960s, paint was not the only thing with lead. In fact, you could easily buy lead bars, which you could melt down and make your own fishing weights. These were popular kits to have. Another popular thing to do was make little soldiers out of molten lead. After the soldiers cooled off, then kids would paint them with some more lead paint. It was not just lead exposure, but it was lead overexposure. But it did keep kids busy for a while.
This makes me uncomfortable. Like, no wonder why this is titled what it is, because I generally am uncomfortable seeing the things that were normal back then. And like literally, like how we said in the intro, is not an understatement. Like, if you were born in the 60s, grew up in the 60s, and you're still alive today, bravo, because you made it. Give a round of applause, because you are a survivor. Like, you're a survivor.
The Gilbert chemistry set was another popular toy for kids to have in the 1960s. This was another item that parents gave to their children to keep them busy. Never mind that they had some chemicals that were highly flammable, like potassium permanganate and ammonium nitrate. In all reality, they were going to need a whole lot more of those substances in order to blow up the whole house, but they still could be a little dangerous. However, at the time, they were considered safe. After all, they removed the
Course they
highly
were.
radioactive uranium from sets in 1952.
The fact that uranium
The
was
A.C.
in that.
Gilbert Company went out of business in 1967, and the Porter Chemical Company, who also made chemistry sets, went out of business in 1984.
Thank God.
Modern chemistry sets for kids are a lot more restricted in the range of chemicals and have simplified instructions, but in the 60s, kids were mixing up all sorts of concoctions.
Yeah.
Asbestos
Damn.
was a common building material that was used in many homes before the 80s.
Oh,
It
not
could be found in
asbestos.
insulation, floor tiles, walls, and pipes, just to name a few things. Most homes and businesses have had these materials removed because of the possible health hazards that are associated with asbestos. In the 1960s, it was possible that kids may have played with loose asbestos at Christmas time.
Oh, I can't.
The fake snow that was used in the movie White Christmas was made out of asbestos, and this was a popular decoration item and was sold in stores until the late 1950s and early 1960s. Some people had boxes of this stuff that they brought out each year, and they had no idea about the dangers of it. If you ever watch...
No. You know, this video should be like a try not to cringe challenge for me, because how I'm sitting through this is making me really, really, like, my skin is crawling thinking about kids playing in asbestos, all that lead. Oh.
idea about the dangers of it. If you ever watch old hockey games from the 1960s, you'll quickly realize
No
that none of the
helmets?
players were wearing helmets.
Oh my God.
These were the tough ones, and apparently they never got brain damage. The
If you
players
fall on
continued
the
to not wear
ice.
helmets until 1979, when the NHL made them mandatory for all new players.
1979 is when they made that mandatory. This is 60s. How long were there no helmets in ice hockey? Huh?
1979, when the NHL made them mandatory for all new players. Anyone who was already in the league had the
And you'd be
option of not
fighting
wearing
in
one
ice
if they
hockey.
chose to do so. The last player who played in the NHL without a helmet retired in 1997.
Wow,
Talk about hard-headed.
1997. Wait, so you could play for a certain amount of time. So new players had to wear helmets, but old players didn't have to? Oh, let me hear that again. Because that's just wild.
1979, when the NHL made them mandatory for all new players. Anyone who was already in the league had the option of not wearing one if they chose to do so.
Wild.
The last player who played in the NHL without a helmet retired in 1997. Talk about hard-headed. Exercise requires a
Wow.
lot of work.
That one reminds me of like seatbelts, like when seatbelts started to be introduced and how much there was like a, backlash from that. People were just still being rebellious, that didn't want to wear seatbelts. And I'm just thinking, like, I remember getting all these road safety adverts when I was like 12, and it would always be like the craziest thing they would show to us. Like, I don't know why we were allowed to watch those videos. Like, they were so graphic of what would happen if you got in a crash and you didn't wear a seatbelt versus what would happen if you did. So the fact that nowadays I'm so hyper aware of like all the safety and all that stuff. So when I see back then when it wasn't a thing like that, I'm in disbelief.
Exercise
Jeez.
requires a lot of work, and not everyone is willing to put in the effort. But just because you were lazy, it did not mean that you weren't going to look for other ways to shed extra pounds.
High heels.
That is really not something that is any different from today.
Why she got high
But in
heels
the
on?
60s, people had the option of getting a vibrating belt machine, and it was quite popular. It was promoted as a way of weight loss
Vibrating
by
belts.
shaking the crap out of your fat and melting inches away. Overall, people looked ridiculous on those things, and they went out of fashion by the 1980s when people realized that they did not have any fat-reducing benefits.
Why? What? That's actually funny.
During the-
That's gotta be up there as one of the most just embarrassing inventions. Like when you look back on, you're just like that's up there, pet rocks. That's up there, pet rocks, man. For my 70s kids, the guys that grew up in the 70s, like the pet rock thing is gotta be the number one silliest invention that actually caught on. This thing has gotta be up there.
Your fat and melting
And the
inches
fact that
away.
it didn't even work.
Overall, people looked ridiculous on those things.
Wait, guys, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this, guys. I'm sorry. I have to. You'll see what I'm about to do. Cause I just gotta see how this thing works. Like I just this is what people were doing in the 60s. Jeez, man. Saying like you can't make this stuff up. And it's the fact that I didn't even work on top of it. It's just what makes it even funnier.
Overall, people looked ridiculous on those things, and they went out of fashion by the 1980s when people realized that they did not have any fat-reducing benefits.
Insane.
During the 1960s, drunk driving was considered more of a rite of passage for young men. There were harsh laws and penalties, but they were rarely enforced. When people got arraigned, they would ask for a jury trial, where they almost were always acquitted. Many states started adopting blood alcohol contents of 0.10 or 0.12 during the decade. But it really wasn't until the 1980s when drunk driving really began to be strictly enforced with no tolerance. Some of the major groups like Mothers Against Drunk Driving had a major effect on everyone's policies and thoughts.
That one's self-explanatory. I didn't even have to talk about that.
If you were a young man in the U.S. in the 1960s, then there was a good chance that you were going to get drafted into the military unless you had some sort of medical condition that would prevent it. In the late 60s, a lot of men were drafted and sent to Vietnam to fight in a war. If you were 18 at the time, you were old enough to go into the military and die, but you were not old enough to vote for or against the ones who were sending you to war.
Oh, that is tough.
You couldn't do that until you were 21.
I didn't know that was the
Most
rule.
states set the drinking age at 21, since that was when you could legally vote, and that had been in place since Prohibition was repealed in 1933.
That's interesting.
When the voting age was lowered from 21 to 18 in 1971, some states lowered the drinking age to 18 in 1972 and 1973. But there were 12 states that kept the drinking age at 21 and never changed it. From 1976 to 1983, several states raised the minimum drinking age to 19 in order to combat drunk driving.
Wow.
In 1984, Congress passed the National Minimum Drinking Age Act, which required states to raise the age to 21 or face losing 10% of their federal highway funds.
No wonder.
By mid-1988, all 50 states and the District of Columbia had complied with this new law.
I was going to say, because you got to be 21 in the U.S.
Skateboarding has its roots in the late 1940s and early 1950s when surfers in California wanted something to do when the waves were flat. At the time, they were basically plywood with wheels on the bottom. By the 60s, a small number of surfing companies began building skateboards which resembled small surfboards. Slowly but surely, this activity grew, and the first broadcast of a skating competition happened in 1965 when it aired on ABC's Wide World of Sports. Patty McGee was one of the first sponsored skateboarders, and she traveled the country demonstrating skateboarding and safety tips.
Oh, wow.
She made her way on the cover of Life magazine and even appeared on television shows like The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson.
Oh, shout out Johnny Carson.
That helped to grow the sport until a variety of sources began to claim that it was dangerous. In 1966, the sales had dropped, but it remained low until the 1970s when the sport went in new directions. At that time, there was new ways of making boards with polyurethane, and there were skate parks starting to pop up in new places.
That is so interesting. That is so interesting. You know what's funny about the whole skateboarding thing is I generally thought I would have thought it was the skateboarding that came first and then surfboarding. But it seems like the surfboard inspired the skateboard. Wow. Okay. I did not know that at all. I wouldn't have guessed as well.
Incredible Edibles was a toy sold by Mattel from 1967 to 68. In a way, it was similar to the Creepy Crawler's thing maker, except you would eat what you made. Basically, you squirted a gelatin-based gel called gobbledygook into a circular mold and baked it into a rubbery soft candy in the shape of worms, insects, and flowers.
Is this where gobbledygook comes from?
Assortment of flavors. If you had any younger siblings and you had the plastigoop from the thing maker, then they may have eaten the wrong thing since they looked somewhat similar. In the 1960s, flying on a plane was very different from what it is today. They had no personal screens to watch television or movies, so you had to be sure to bring a newspaper, magazine, or book to read. Eventually that would get old, so many adults would start smoking on the plane, and it was perfectly fine. This encapsulated tube would just be one big smoke show, and even if you did not smoke, you left the plane smelling like you did.
Yeah, I could not survive
if you
flying.
Survived the 1960s.
Yeah, like I just would not survive. And I feel like, from what you guys are telling me, like flying on a plane wasn't even that common back in the day like that anyways. That's only like what rich people would be doing, or like people that were doing well. So, yeah, man, like... Let me know if you guys experience, any of you guys watching experience any of that either way, because I'm just, some of these pictures and I'm seeing the smoke that's on this screen right now. That's so bad. I got asthma as well. I didn't even imagine that. My lungs are suffocating watching that.
If you survived the 1960s, then it probably made you a stronger person than you would have been otherwise.
Oh, definitely.
This was a decade where you had to be a little tough, and it didn't hurt that you had a permanent pair of crazy pants.
Oh, definitely.
With those, you could take on anything that the world could throw at you, and you would be just fine. What are some of the memories that you have of the 1960s? Let us know in the comments below.
All right, guys, look, that definitely seems to be the end of this video, but wow. Oh, you guys saw me during this video. I cannot stand some of the things that I was seeing, from the lead, from the drinking while driving. Like, it generally just makes me think, like, out of all the inventions that we have today, just how much of that was as a result of some sort of riot, or like, you know, it's only until a couple people start, you know, ceasing to exist, that's when people want to start reevaluating the choices of some of the things they allow to be consumed like that. But this is just, it's insane to me, guys. I still
lowered the drinking age to 8.
I still can't believe that. And the whole, back in the day, you could just get drafted to the war like that, Vietnam War. I feel like a lot of you guys watching probably have some military experience if you grew up around this time. And you couldn't even vote to, like, to have a say in that. Yeah. Guys, this video absolutely shocked me. I don't know how I survived it. Look, if you survived and you're watching this and you grew up in this time, you are a survivor. Shout out to you guys. If you survived to the end of this video, that means you're the realest of the real. So comment on a yellow heart or #flex so I know who my real ones are. And yeah, like I said in the video, let me know if you guys can relate to any of these experiences, how this one resonated with you. Were these things true? Is this thing sugar-coated? Is it worse than what was being said? Is this being exaggerated? Look, let me know all the things and in between. You guys know I got curious, man. I'd love to know how this one affected you guys watching. But yeah, insane. Guys, don't forget to like the video before you heading out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And have a new JayFlex. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.